Hey, you guys, welcome back to Romance Review TV with Lady T. Got a recap for you of Married at First Sight, San Diego, Season 15, Episode 12, Baby Steps. So we're going to get a chance to break all of this down. They had some intimacy challenges. They met with Dr. Pia again. A lot of couples did get closer, and two other couples are just drifting apart because there's a lot of hurt and pain there. And we're going to talk about this and try to make all of this make sense. So before we unpack this, take a second to make sure you're subscribed to the channel to receive all updates. And please don't forget to like and share. We're going to start off with Mitch and Kristen first. So we see Mitch having a conversation with one of his best friends. And one of his issues that he wanted to talk to her about is the fact that he and Kristen is having intimacy issues, because every time they do, he's always joking and thinking it's a whole lot of fun, and it's a huge turnoff for her, which I can totally understand. That you want to get into the passion and the heat of it all. When you got somebody joking, that can definitely turn it off. And she gave him some good advice to, have some communication and relax. So they did get to talk to Dr. Pia, and she did a checkup on them. And he did say that they took sex off the table for right now because they wanted to build an emotional connection and not just on sex. And then she started asking these questions about, what did you see as your role model as a child? Now, he said what his was, and it was something environmentalist related. However, when it came down to Kristen's turn, she really talked about her mom and how, her mom raised them as a single mom. And even up to this day about her businesses and everything. And what happened, we see Mitch jump in the conversation talking about, you pretty much didn't answer the question right. She was talking about as a child. You talking about in now. And so that kind of pissed her off because she wanted a different reaction from Mitch instead of what he gave. So he did apologize and, tell her, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it that way. But, I don't think it was an appropriate question. Just let her air whatever she feels out in that moment. Because honestly, I didn't see anything wrong with it. I don't know about you guys. But it did turn pleasant later in the episode for these two because they start doing their task and, in intimacy. And I guess Married at First Sight UK is also having intimacy week as well with their couple. So it was pretty interesting to see both sides do their thing. But they had to talk about their favorite sex positions. And she said hers was doggy style. So she must like getting her, I was going to say this, but I don't know if it's appropriate for the audience. But anywho, they did another massage type situation, which I thought was pretty darn cool, to say the least. And I honestly think that as much as a lot of folks had issues with him in the past, they seem like they are doing a whole lot better. So she gave him the thumbs up. So I guess everything that Mr. Mitch was doing was all good. So later on in the episode, they all met separately, the guys and the gals. Mitch and Kristen basically talk about the fact that they kind of put sex on the back burner while they explore their emotional connection. However, I didn't like the fact that Lindy called him the B word. So, I didn't think that was cool at all. Let's talk about Mitch. So let's talk about Nate and Stasha. So they also met with Dr. Holick, and she brought over some goodies for them. They got a lot of stuff to do. We'll see a little bit of that in a little bit. But the biggest thing about their conversation is that Stasha tends to attach trust and control together. And she was saying that, you got to be able to trust him, but not to try to control him. You got to be able to feel the trust enough for him to be able to lead. And so she gave them a couple of tasks where pretty much he had to be in the lead, and Stasha had to be vulnerable enough to allow that trust to kick in so he can be able to do that. So they had a little bit of practice. I will say, for this particular couple in this episode, they had a lot of intimacy scenes. I mean, between the one where she showed him where he needs to touch her on his neck, she ended up licking him up behind his ear. Then they went to this little hideaway, which I actually think is kind of cute for couples. I like this type of thing, where they got to use those box of goodies that Dr. Holick brought over, when they had their little meeting. And yeah, it got a little frisky in there, and I think even they say it's about to get freaky up in here. And yeah, they had a couple of scenes that was pretty darn interesting, to say the least. And Mitch, if you're going to laugh and have a good time, this is how you do it. Not being goofy and all of that. They had a little bit of fun with theirs, and at the same time build intimacy. So now we're going to talk about Lindy and Miguel. So it was their turn to also have a task. The stork brought them, and I know there's no stork, but they brought them a baby and left it at the door. And it's not a real baby. Of course, we all saw it was their challenge of being parents. And I think they decided to call their baby name McGindy. And then they also still had an intimacy challenge, and where she had to take shots off of his stomach. They did really well this week. I got to give it to them. Not too many issues there, but it really showed how Miguel really would be as a father. He seemed like he was really enjoying himself. He was very attentive. Now, Lindy, on the other hand, even though I think at the end, and we'll see that when they meet up with the girls, I'm not sure she's ready to be a mom yet, but it looks like Miguel is definitely more ready to be a father. So much so that when the baby was up overnight every 2 hours, he got up to go and walk the baby and take care of it, even though it's not a real baby. So that speaks a lot on him. Even also when they met up with the guys, he brought the baby with them. And like Mitch said, you guys must be doing really well if that's the only task that you have. And of course, Lindy is like, I don't want a baby anytime soon. We're going to be using lots of protection. Okay, so let's talk about these two, Morgan and Ben. And they're pretty much, I don't see no future for them at all. I mean, she really absolutely I think she's pretty much done. She claims she wants an emotional apology from Ben, because whatever apology that he's been giving is not good enough. Now, I will say, and I could be wrong, and maybe she is feeling some kind of way about the situation, but I honestly think that when Dr. Holick came in, she put on the waterworks. Now, some people, I'm not saying she's manipulative, but some people might call that manipulative, because she pretty much laid out the playing field before he even had a chance to speak. Now, I will say with Ben, he's tried to take ownership of everything that revolves around this. Now, like I said in my previous recaps, when it comes to these two, each one of the guys, the gals, especially the girls, they talk about their husbands all the time. Like I said earlier about Lindy calling Mitch the B word. And I mean, isn't that talking crap about somebody's husband? So, I mean, they do it. And for her to be so upset about this, and what did he say? I would like to know everything that he said that was so bad and making her look like she's this bad person. All we seen her, especially the one thing that got me about her, is saying that Ben is going to feel her pain and she's going to inflict that pain for the rest of the season. And honestly, whatever apology she gives, her walls are up so high and so titanium-like that it's not going to matter anyway, because she's not going to be able to receive it. And that conversation spilled over into that little group huddle with the guys and the gals separately. She still heard the girls are taking her side. And then, of course, the guys are taking Ben's side, because Mitch even said the same thing. It doesn't matter what you're going to tell her. She's going to not receive it because she's so pissed off. It really doesn't matter at this point. So either you guys move on or you move away from each other. I mean, that's all I can say, because otherwise I don't even see a future. And it's only 3 weeks left. And last but not least, Alexis and Justin. And they started off the episode bad because they were going back and forth about the fact that Alexis liked to go out every weekend to hang out with her friends. And Justin is like, well, do you got to go every weekend? And so Dr. Pia heard the conversation before getting settled with them. And she was like, what was going on in here? And so they decided to break down the conversation, and it led to a whole lot. It uncovered a whole lot. So it started off with her going out with her friends. Her friends is important to her. She needs this outlet. Now, one thing that Dr. Pia was like is, you're married. Some things change when you're married. Alexis always thought being married is supposed to always be fun. Marriage is work. You're going to have fun times, but there are times you're going to have to work through things. It's not just this cakewalk. And, I'm not trying to be negative, but it is. It's work. However, some of the things that Dr. Pia was saying, which kind of lined up with what Justin was saying, and to add on to it is the fact that Alexis said that she don't know if she want to be married or be married to Justin. And of course, your partner don't want to hear that. He takes off his ring. And, Dr. Holick was like, did you see that? And she was like, yeah, I see it. But it wasn't surprising to her. She had this weird smile on her face. Like she was pretty much saying like, okay, well, whatever. And she came back and she was like, it doesn't mean that I don't want to be married to you. It's just that I'm going to work through the process. You said what you said. You don't want to be married to him, or might not want to be married to him. So then the conversation extended over when they were supposed to be answering these little questions. And it came right back to the same subject about her going out with her friends every weekend. And he feels pretty much like he's being left out. And she's like, well, I'm only going out with my friends for 2 hours. And I acknowledge you. And he was like, but you married now. I mean, you expect to continue to go out with your friends every weekend? And so I'm thinking they're going to get a break with this little intimacy challenge, because there is a pole in the middle of their kitchen floor. So she gets up on this pole trying to dance seductively like she was having a good time. And Justin also looked like he was having a good time. But, you can tell they was just trying to get through this whole challenge for the cameras. I mean, I think they might have been having fun. She ended up on the floor. I'm glad she didn't hurt herself. But it really took a head when they wore these blindfolds. And Justin pretty much, he said some good things, but he also reiterated the fact that he don't feel like he's being wanted. The fact that she said that she don't know if she want to be married to him. And he went in and put it all on the table. And this whole thing about her and his vows, talking about her being free. Do you actually think he wants you to just be free where you're not married and you want to live like two single people in a marriage? Anyway, when it was his turn to wear the blindfold, she gave all these good things about him and nothing else. And then he was like, that's it? I was like, that's it. And she was like, yeah, that's it. I've already said what I said throughout the weeks that we've been together. I don't need to reiterate it. She gets back with her friends and with the other ladies and, talk about the situation. Now, this also brings up the fact of the intimacy issue, because if you did watch the after party a couple weeks ago, she was talking about how he couldn't manifest himself in the bedroom. Well, on the flip side, he said amongst this group, she don't give energy back. When he tries to be with her, she just lays there. And one thing about sex, the biggest sex organ in the body is the brain. So if it doesn't start upstairs, it's not going to go anywhere else. Well, it gets worse. So there's this whole argument at the end of the episode between these two, and it's coming off of this whole thing about what she said when Dr. Pia was there. We had a producer come in and try to sort this thing out. Justin gave his side of the story. She's talking about, meaning the producer, oh, I'm hearing two sides of the story. And at this point, I think they should cut their losses. I honestly think that she wants out. If she's not into this dude, let him go. He obviously is trying to work it with her. She was talking about her mental health and how looked like Dr. Pia had took his side over hers when they had the conversation earlier. It's just not there. And I forgot to mention the whole thing where Nate was talking about how they came over to his house and Alexis was starting a whole bunch of mess talking about other people's marriages. So that goes to the video I just did the other day about whether Alexis is a snitch or not. Because he even said it in this episode, like he said in the after party last week about her snitching. So obviously there's some things going on with these two, and then we have our thoughts about Alexis, but we'll have to see what happens after this cliffhanger for next week. Okay, so let's get the conversation started down in the comment section. Let me know your thoughts on each one of the couples, the situation between Morgan and Ben especially, and Alexis and Justin. Everybody else seemed to be making it pretty well. So until the next video, like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you soon. Bye.